NBC did an interview with a bunch of union members at a local union hall. So I thought it would be good to review this video. Interviews with undecided battleground voters explain closeness, complexity of 2024 race. So it doesn't really explain there that this is a bunch of union members, but I'm sure once it gets started, it'll identify that. And as you can see on the screen, it has some listings from a Teamsters poll. It says Trump 59.6%, Harris 34%. The context behind that is that there's disagreement in terms of whether people think that that was actually a fair vote. I did talk about the lack of endorsement of a presidential candidate by Sean O'Brien, president of Teamsters, in one of my previous videos. I'll link that at the end here and probably throw one in there, like a link at the bottom somewhere. But you know what I heard from my contacts at Teamsters, which if you know this channel, you know my content. You know I used to work at the Teamsters. But what I did hear is that a lot of people were getting polls after the fact that it wasn't really a good poll. But anyway, the outcome was that they didn't end up endorsing anybody. So let's go ahead and get started with this video.
To get a better sense of what is happening in this hotly contested state, among this critical group of voters, we went right down to ground zero and talked to a group of nearly 60 members of UA Local 85, a union group.
So I want to tell you about a resource you should know about. It's called Labor's Bookstore. Here's a little bit about them. At Labor's Bookstore, you will find books for union officers, stewards, and members that will help you navigate everyday situations, better understand your organization and your role in it, and appreciate the benefits of union membership. I actually used some of the resources from this bookstore when I was running a union. I was a brand new union member. Actually, I was a brand new union member and a union president. And one of the books I used to look at was Union Members Guide. It's a pretty good book by Michael Maurer. There's also stuff here for business agents, stewards, all kinds of folks like that. And we actually started a relationship. So if you go to the site and you type in, when you're ready to make your purchase, the word UnionBase, no spaces, you actually get a 10% discount. So check it out today, Labor's Bookstore.
We talked about the upcoming election, how many of them remain undecided, and what might make them more decided.
So she didn't say this, but UA stands for United Association. And the union is a very old union. It is the United Association of Journeymen and Apprentices of the Plumbing and Pipe Fitting Industry of the United States and Canada, commonly known as the United Association. It's the union which represents workers in the plumbing and pipe fitting industry. So, and that's across the United States and Canada, just for full context, and those who don't know.
Even with so much of this election riding on their vote and two such candidates to choose from, a lot of these folks remain very much up for grabs. There is also a fairly stark generational divide among these union members, but maybe not the kind you would expect. What you're about to hear is critical in understanding why it's so very close and why its outcome may not even be clear on election night.
It's actually debatable if anybody's still undecided, but whatever.
It is a fascinating, complicated snapshot from the front lines of the 2024 election. Take a look.
All right, so by a show of hands, how many of you are paying close attention to this election? Okay, I'm gonna say that's like half the audience.
Is anybody undecided?
Okay.
I'm undecided.
Two people undecided.
Because I just haven't seen enough of it yet. I need to pay closer attention and kind of do more independent research before I make my judgment.
What have you caught of this campaign? Have there been news stories about the candidates that have made its way to your information feed?
Not particularly. It's just how people kind of act around this time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little crazy, so I try not to partake so much.
I'm supporting Kamala Harris because I've seen 4 years. Well, actually, I've seen 9 years of Donald Trump.
We have to move our country forward.
It's kind of weird that they're talking about the Teamsters at the bottom of the screen, but they're at a UA local. I guess because they're just on the subject of unions.
I think Kamala Harris, generation like younger than myself, needs to start moving this country forward. Donald Trump is pulling us backwards, not moving us forward. That's why I support Kamala Harris. Young people, there's a lot of young people in this room. I see the policies of Kamala Harris, that the Infrastructure Act, that's put most of these people here back to work for pretty much their entire career at a good wage that they can support their family and own a home and build generational wealth.
President Biden is the most pro-working president we've ever had. The only president to be on a picket line and to support working families.
This is a somewhat diverse looking local, men, women, people, African Americans, white folks. So I wonder if they got only people from the local, or if there's, you know, people outside the local, but this is pretty diverse local.
Infrastructure bill, time after time, we've seen him stand up for us.
Do you feel like Vice President Harris is going to be as strong as he was?
I do.
Who here is voting for the first time? Is this anybody's first election? You guys back here. What's sort of made its way across your radar? Any stories or issues or positions?
Mostly just immigration.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What about immigration have you been paying attention to?
There are thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants coming across the border every day, and the vice president has done minimal work to fix that, based on what I've seen. So I'd like that to change.
Do you feel like Donald Trump's going to be better on that issue?
Based on what we've seen on his first 4 years, I do believe that he will be better on that. Yeah.
Are you leaning towards Trump right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that Vice President Harris could do at this point to change your mind?
Not particularly, no. Unless she changes her stance completely on fixing the border. That's no.
This is your first election?
Yeah, it is.
And have you been paying attention to stuff?
I wonder if she asked that guy any more questions. It kind of just cut to the next person, but
Some things, but as of right now, it's kind of hard to know what is true and what's false as far as both parties are concerned.
Like, what issue matters to you the most?
Definitely are issues concerning democracy and what was discussed before the border.
What about immigration concerns you?
The influx in illegal immigration is affecting a lot more than just the people, but our economy, we're losing jobs for the people who live here. People are, running out of work, and in return, it's making life as a whole for the country harder.
Do you feel like one candidate or the other is better on that issue?
Like I don't know what to believe from what I'm seeing from multiple news outlets and what comes across my news feed and whatnot. So I'm not super opinionated either way.
How do you think you're going to ultimately decide? I know we talked to one gentleman.
I'm going to take a leap and guess that this guy is a Trump voter. Like, not to stereotype him or anything like that, but I think it's pretty obvious that he's voting for Trump. He probably doesn't want to say, he probably doesn't feel comfortable given the fact that this is MSNBC, but
He said, I think I'm just going to kind of go with my heart on election day.
As the election comes a little closer, I think the more I see and the more truth that ends up coming out, I'll be able to make a more educated.
I say that based on the fact that he doesn't really trust the media. Not that everyone has a super trusting state of being right now, but that's pretty much that's a Trump thing.
How many people care about whether their union endorses a candidate? Is that going to matter to you?
So it matters to me what my union endorses, because the union provides me with work and directly affects my pocketbook and my family.
If the union doesn't endorse a candidate and you're left, to decide on your own, first of all, do you think you're definitely going to vote?
I'm definitely going to vote.
How do you think you're going to ultimately make that decision?
I think I'm still going to be conflicted in the voting line.
Really? So literally a game time call.
I think so.
Is it going to matter what your fellow union members are doing?
It's going to matter.
Do you guys talk about it?
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic.
And is there disagreement?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right now, it's pretty black and white.
I appreciate him saying that, because not all union members are going to vote the same. 10% of the population is a union member, so it's not an insignificant number of people. It's not what it used to be, but it's still quite a bit of people. So, an election is close. It really makes a difference what that section of the population is going to do. Also, union members are much, much more active in voting than other folks. I think particularly because their locals and their internationals put a lot of money into actually doing get out the vote. And at this point in the election, where we only have like a week and a half or 2 weeks to go, it's like just about turnout. Like, who's going to be able to get people to show up at the polls?
White was happening, and you go back to where Republicans wanted to make our economy a service economy rather than a manufacturing economy. So do your research on that. Do it, and vote, for Christ's sakes. People around the country, around the world don't have an opportunity. Look around the economy. I mean, we got the CHIPS Acts going on here. There's billions and billions of dollars. Most of these people in this room are benefiting from Biden's CHIPS Act deal, and they don't even know it yet. Do your research. Look at that. Jesus Christ, pull the head out of your ass.
And I'm going to guess that he's a Biden voter, or excuse me, a Kamala Harris voter, even though he's talking about Biden.
You saw that a number of veteran workers there who were strong supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris, but you also saw that there were a large number of union workers, particularly younger union workers, who were undecided. And throughout our discussion, it was clear that many of those undecided voters saw immigration and the southern border as a major concern. They were also particularly motivated by concerns about the economy, including inflation and the rising cost of housing.
Do you think the housing is an issue?
Yes, I actually just recently purchased a home. So yes, I do think that it is too high. It's just the cost of a livable move-in ready home nowadays is just absurd, I think, in my opinion, to where before I feel like you could buy a house for a reasonable price and it not have to have a ton of work put into it.
I just recently purchased a house as well. And this house has gone up $50,000 in the past 5 years. So, I mean, just looking at the prices in the past 5 years, why has it gone up so much? What can we do to bring it back down to what it was?
We're fortunate enough, our wages been able to keep up with inflation, but a lot of people, they haven't been so fortunate. They have to choose between paying bills, buying food, putting food on the table, so I think that's going to play a big factor in this.
So these people are coming from a perspective of, regularly working people. This isn't an unemployed perspective necessarily. They're coming from a local union that seems like maybe it has some consistent work. They are homeowners and home buyers. So we're talking about middle-class people in this group of folks.
Selection.
And that's the end of that. That was good. I enjoyed that. There was an article I saw about union members. Let me see if I could find that. Union members election. Union members could determine the election. Union members could determine the election. The union workers who could determine the election. Unions have historically supported Democrats, but recently they have shifted right. Today on Post reports, the pivotal role unions could play in this election. This year, several unions, large unions, withheld their endorsements for a presidential candidate, a move that upset Democrats, but the majority of unions have always endorsed Democratic candidates. This was reflective of a shift that's been happening since 2016 election, with more and more unions moving to the right. This division was on display when labor reporter Lauren Gorley visited the Ford auto plant in Wayne, Michigan, a factory in critical swing state. Workers told her that they listened to MSNBC and Joe Rogan while they work and wear their shirts in support of former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Some said they were still undecided. Host Martin Powers spoke with Lauren about why this shift to the right has been happening and what workers at the auto plant told her about how they're deciding whom to vote for.